Well, good afternoon and welcome to Pursuit of Purpose, where we share our journeys of how God turned our pain into purpose. I am your host, author, and kingdom writing coach, Indiana Tuggle, and today we have a special guest with us in the studio. We have with us Jere'My Rankins, and after serving 5 years in prison, Jere'My came home with a burning desire to do something about what he saw and experienced while doing time on the inside. He came home from confinement to earn 2 degrees in psychology and now holds a professional license to do what he believes to be his calling. And I'm going to let him tell you guys what that calling is. So please help me welcome Jere'My Rankins to the show.
Thank you so much. Indiana, it is truly a privilege to come on and tell my testimony. Anytime that I have the opportunity to touch lives the way God has touched mine and changed it, I take full advantage of it. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for reaching out to us. This is the first time I've had a male guest on the show, so this is going to be interesting, and I am excited to hear about what God has done in your life, and I'm specifically interested in how you really went from prison into purpose. So, yes, tell us all about that.
Yeah, so today I'm a man who believes in positive change in people, and that's kind of the nature of my business. You know, I deal with a bunch of knuckleheads at the county jail here in Harris County, and so with that population, you have to have patience and you have to believe that there will be a positive change. And so with my story, I did serve that 5 years. And when I was a child, I went undiagnosed with many childhood behavioral issues. So looking back at it now, I can easily clinically diagnose myself, with conduct disorder and different delinquencies. But I did get diagnosed with ADHD, and I did have that behavioral issue. I had those behavioral issues in the classroom, but it definitely progressed into my early teenage years, 13, 14 years old. I began to have sticky fingers when I walked into H-E-B or stores in and around town with my mother and father, and sticking candy bars in my pocket, and that's where it started. It kind of progressed from there, and by the time I was a junior and senior in high school, I was breaking into cars and knocking on doors on apartment complexes, and if nobody answered, I'm going around to the window. And it's a harsh reality that that is the thing. People, young teenagers, are doing that criminal mischief, that criminality, that behavior. It's happening, and unfortunately, I was caught up in that, and I was doing that. And so I ended up doing the 5 years in prison. I got sentenced in 2004, and immediately, at the age of 19, immediately, I made a conscious decision, hey, I need to change my direction. And, what's so crazy, Indiana, and I hate using that word, so what's so ironic, Indiana, is when I have 2 felonies, and the first one, when I was in high school, I prayed to God. I said, God, if you get me out of here. And I cried silently. I was 17 years old in the adult jail. And so they housed me by myself because technically I'm still a minor. So in Texas. So I was by myself in my cell, and I was crying. I was in there for a week. And I prayed. I said, God, if you let me out of here, I promise I'll change my life. I'll never do it again. And 2 years later, I got put on probation, deferred probation, and 2 years later, I was back at it. I caught a robbery charge. And so when I sat in that cell, I thought to myself, this is God's way of getting a hold of me. He reached out and he touched me. He said, hey, you need to slow down. Because out of all the things that I would do, and I don't want to self-incriminate myself, I had my hands in all types of stuff, Miss Indiana. I mean, I was doing it. From selling drugs to I wasn't a huge user, not at all. Marijuana was as far as I'd go, but I would sell crack cocaine. I would do it. I would sell that and drive-by shootings. I mean, I was out there pretty bad, and I believe God had put His hand on me. He said, "You need to slow down. I have something in store for you." But if I kept on going the road I was going, I probably most likely would have never came home from prison. And so I thank God for the opportunity for Him to slow me down and get in the Word like I did when I was incarcerated.
Amazing story, and I'm reminded by something you said at 13 and 14 years old, and you got involved in the theft and the criminal mischief. And I'm reminded of how so many people kind of see that mischief of theft, going into the store, stealing stuff, as like a rite of passage. It's so normalized in our communities, and it's like, oh, boys will be boys. But when it progresses into robbery and then we're in prison, then it's like people all shocked and surprised. So what do you tell the young boys or even the parents when you see that behavior beginning so young? What do you tell them to be able to intervene so that they won't have to go to prison like you did?
That's a great question. And I always point back to cultural values. So, and this isn't coming from the home, mother and father, or even single-parent homes. That's unfortunately one of the identifiers within black communities, is single-parent homes with the mother raising the children. But one of the main things that I like to hone in on is the music, because we kind of identify with the music, and unfortunately, and not all rap music portrays this, but they really push in on risky sexual behaviors. I don't believe that I need to go into detail about that in our rap music. Substance use and abuse, so whether it's selling drugs or using it, and violent behaviors. We in our music, it tells our community, it sells a story, rags to riches. I came from nothing, now I've got this. And they glorify crime. So by selling dope, this is what I have. And so not in all rap music, but unfortunately in mainstream hip-hop rap music, it is very magnified on those key things that I just talked about, the risky sexual behaviors, the drug, substance abuse, the violent behaviors, all that stuff. It's in our music. Music is a part of our culture. At a young age in our community, we know the words to every mainstream that comes on the radio, rap song. Even when they blurt out the bad words, little kids know the words to those songs. But unfortunately, when it comes down to spelling bees or spelling quizzes, we're falling short because we identify with the music. It's catchy and it gets in our spirit. And so I say this. I don't say, hey, let's stop rap music altogether or secular music altogether. I'm talking specifically about rap music, but let's don't forget that in the 70s and the 80s with the Rolling Stones and the hip-hop and the rock and roll, they were doing heavy on drugs and all that other stuff. So I'm just focusing on this specific demographic, this specific population that we are discussing today. I tell parents, if you're going to have your children or allow your children to listen to that music, you need to have conversations. Let's process this song. Let's process what is the goal of the artist when he or she is rapping or singing on this song. I think it's very important that we process that. What is their goal? Are they just trying to sell records, or do they live that lifestyle? Do you think that they're telling their story, or do you think they're glorifying that lifestyle that they're living? We need to process words, lyrics to these songs. Otherwise, those kids take those lyrics and they bring it home. It gets bedded in their spirit. And so for me, for example, it was about getting money, right? So I'm young. I would steal car stereos and I would sell them, and I would put some at, DVD screens in my car seats and in my visors. I'd have a PlayStation in there. I mean, all that materialistic crap, excuse my language, that junk was a part of that culture, okay? It was a part of that music culture, that rap, hip-hop culture. So I tell parents just to, if you're not going to screen what they listen to, then go ahead and process their music. Go ahead and process it with them. That's the safest bet for me in my experience. That's one intervention.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I've often asked God this question of why do our children only see rap music, becoming a rap artist or a sports player as the only way to get out the hood, and his response was because those are the only people that come back and pour into them. Those are the only people that they see. They see them on the videos, even though the rap artists may not come into the communities and start a mentoring program, but they are visible to them. They're visible. They're on the TV screen, so they can relate to them, and their story is relatable because they relate to them growing up in the hood and not having enough food or not having money for this. They relate to that. But how many of us who made it, who have become doctors and lawyers and business owners, and how many of us do we make ourselves visible for our kids to see?
Yeah,
it's not as visible for them to be able to make that process duplicatable. For them, oh, you went to school for 8 years to be a doctor. I can't do that because I'm flunking out. I flunked out. But even though I flunked out, I can still become this rap artist though. But they don't know that a lot of them rap artists got degrees. That they're imitating. So for me, it's about changing the narrative and being able to put positive images of us out there in the media, on television, on social media, and not hiding behind the the saying that you can do good for others. You don't have to tell everything. At this point, because our children are watching, I do think you have to show it because they need to see more than what's in the videos and what's on television. Because we still fighting that battle today, of positive images of us on television.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And then if you really, really get into it, some of the most successful rap artists and entertainers, you say, hey, whatever happened to them? With Jay-Z, he's a huge businessman. He is a business, okay? 50 Cent. I mean, we can go down with the most, not even with the most successful, but those that had mentors or they kind of got hip to it, they told them, hey, look, it's good to go and do concerts. It's good to sell. But, look, behind the scenes producing, that's where the money's at. Hey, you want to make – and they have mentors to help them out. But I totally agree with you on the education blast. You have kids that they tune out, okay? In our community, hey, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at science. Like, I'm done with this. I don't want to finish. I don't want to complete. And so to them, I think it's very important that we have an entrepreneurship program that where we teach them about money. In our communities, we need to educate the parents. We need to educate the caregivers, the guardians, and let them know, hey, look, your child does not want to go to high school, does not want to go to college or a higher education. That's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Let me show you a program. Robert Kiyosaki, I don't want to go into their programs. I don't want to be advertising for them. But for your listeners that want resources, Robert Kiyosaki, Dave Ramsey, these are money people. They have programs for you to teach them about money, assets versus liabilities, what are good investments and what are not. So a car is a liability versus an asset unless your car can make you money. And so there is certain programs that we need to foster with our children. Hey, you don't want to go to high school? Look, it's important for you to get this GED. That's no question. We're not going to argue about that. We're going to get you a GED. After that, let me teach you about this entrepreneurship. You don't have to go to college to be a successful business owner. You don't. And I think college is starting to become obsolete because at the bachelor's level, unless you're in something engineering, nursing, unless you're in something that is quote-unquote essential, it's not worth the debt unless you have the funds to pay for that. It's not worth the debt. So
Absolutely,
if you're not in it to if you're not in it to go on to get a master's degree or a PhD or MD, if you're not going on, that's not something that I would encourage for our youth. If you don't like school, you don't want to continue, don't force it. Let me tell you about this entrepreneurship and how you can own businesses and how you can increase your wealth without getting in debt. So yeah, that's what I say to that.
Yeah, because money is kind of taboo. In our community, no one wants to learn about money until they have it. And then they want to learn about it because somebody has stolen it from them. They've been, had to the hard knock life, or they've had it taken from them, or somebody has swindled them out of their money or mismanaged their money, and then now they want to get educated. I mean, look at how many stories that we have with entertainers who, New Edition, Tony Braxton, MC Hammer, who had great success, but mismanagement of money, trying to take care of everybody, and you end up going for broke, and you have to build yourself back up, and you kind of get educated through the streets, through the hard knock life, and it shouldn't be like that. We should want to be educated enough. My thing is, I agree with you that the college formal education is not the only road to success. However, I still think education, however way you can get it, whether it be through formal school, mentorship, apprentice program, or something, you need to be educated in your craft, that you want to pursue. Because a lot of times, a lot of kids, they have raw talent, but because they're not educated in the craft, they get taken advantage of. Right. If you want to be an artist and you're not educated in the entertainment business, you're going to be taken advantage of.
Oh yeah. And so that brings me back to to my story. When I was in prison, as soon as I got sentenced to that 5 years, well, first I went back to the dorm and the guys were saying, "Oh man, surely you're going to get off. Surely they're not going to sentence you no time. You'll probably get extended probation, blah, 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 blah." See? And so let me tell you what happened. So my second felony was the robbery by threat, okay? And so me and my buddy walked into a store. I don't want to give the name. I was about to. But we walked into a store, and the kind of a supermarket and a large chain. And so we walked in there looking for a police scanner. So when we go to college, whenever we would go off, this is my first year, we could speed, and then whenever we heard a police officer, we would slow down because it was 4 hours away. So we went in there shopping for a police scanner. It was too expensive for us because we're broke college students. I think the lowest one was like $50 or $60. We didn't have it. And so we started walking around the store, and keychains was a big thing because the laser pointer keychains was a big thing. You would point them up at the skies, at the airplane back in 2003, 2002. It was the thing. And so in college, we would point them at our teachers, the back of their head and at their butt, when they turn around on the dry erase board, being kids. And so we started stealing those out of the packages at the store. When we got ready to walk out, it said, "Hey, stop, security." So me and my buddy, we ran. Okay, no weapons, no, hey, stick them up, we want your money. None of that. We just ran. And so they came back and they said, "Hey, you used some razors out of our store to cut open those packages, and those could have been a weapon." And so, anyways, they tagged me with robbery by threat. And that's funny how the system works, but I'm not going to go into prison reform. But, the DA wants convictions. And so, anyways, they convicted me for that. And so when I went back to my my dorm, I said, "Yeah, man, they sentenced me to 5 years." And so I went in my room, or my cell, and I got on my top bunk, and I wanted to cry. And then I thought about it. I said, no, these guys out here, they know that I'm sad and I'm depressed. I need to go show my face. So I hid my sorrow. I hid everything that I was feeling until it came to be rack-up time. We racked up, and I was processing it with my cellie, and he was telling, "Hey, you're going to be okay. You're going to do 18 months and come home." Yeah. And so, okay, man, good night. I get on my top bunk, and I cried the loudest, silent weep I've ever cried in my life. I bawled, but you didn't hear a thing because I couldn't allow my cellmate to hear me cry. And I cried. I bawled. Because it wasn't just that I was going away. I was going to prison. I had a full scholarship to play football. I had 2-parent home in a upper middle class neighborhood. I came from good background, good home, church going family. And I had to go back to my roots. When I was in prison, I had to go back to my roots, and that was prayer. Mm-hmm. And so I wept. I wept probably the whole night, and at midnight is when I started. So rack-up time in county was at 9 p.m. I probably wept until about 12:30, 1 o'clock. After I dried my tears on my sheets and pillow, I began to pray. And it was in my prayer, it was at that moment, God said, "I've got you. You're going to come out of here better than when you came in. But this is a season where I need to fix what is going on within you. I need to cleanse that. I need to get that out of your spirit." And it was tough. It was tough first 5 years. So the first 2.5 years, I said, "Look, I'm going to learn Spanish." And I use old retired textbooks to learn Spanish, and so I began to educate myself, right? Then I had an opportunity at Good Behavior. I could take my core courses. So what is it? The core curriculum, the basic math, English. I can take the basics in my undergrad while I was in prison. So I learned Spanish, and I said I wanted to go back to get my education. So I learned Spanish, and then I began to knock out my basics for my undergrad degree. And throughout this 2.5 years, I was studying the Word of God. I was searching, God, allow your will to be done in my life. And it was not easy. 60 months, 5 years, day for day. And when I came out, I hit the ground running with a purpose.
So tell us, what does that mean, you hit the ground running? How did you turn that pain into purpose?
So it would be easy to say, hey, I got out of prison, and I don't want to minimize anybody else's success, but I don't I didn't want to get out of prison and say, okay, I did that, I've changed. Let me go to my local community and start mentoring to youth. Let me go to my local church and start trying to mentor youth. I wanted to do all of that, but I wanted to show the state so I can go and get contracts and I can get I can do large speaking engagements and I can really put an impact on the community. So I knew that I wanted to get my education, and how could I do that? How could I touch these youth? And when I went through my undergraduate degree, that's when I found my career path, and God began to start talking to me about a book, how I'm going to send my message out into the community, how I'm going to touch lives. And he said, you need to not only be an ex-convicted felon, you need to have the alphabets and the paper behind your name to show not only do you have the personal life experiences, but you also have the education and the training to go along with it. It's a holistic approach on how you can attack the issues within the minority community. I don't want to just say black community, but minorities in general. Black and Hispanics, black and Latinos, we overcrowd the prisons across this nation. Blacks and Latinos.
Absolutely. We really do. And it's constantly enlarging. And like you said, we can't get into prison reform and unfair sentencing. We can't get into all of that, but it does play a part. But I love that you adhered to the plan that God has. Tell us about the struggle to do that, because I'm sure it wasn't easy to just
let me tell you. Let me tell you. So, I would go through. Let me give you 3 incidences where I almost started questioning my purpose. I kind of went into these depression modes where I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to speak to my girlfriend, my now wife. I didn't want to talk to her on the phone for 3 days because I had the first time my GPA was subpar. It was garbage. It was 2.6 GPA when I graduated my undergrad. And so I was thinking to myself, boy, what am I going to do? I can't get into a PhD program like this. In psychology, you can go from bachelor's to PhD. You don't have to go to a felon. But I didn't have the grades for that. And so my wife said, look, my girlfriend at the time, she said, hey, what do you want me to get for you for your graduation? I just don't know what to do. And I said, this is speaking life into your vision. This is walking by faith and not by sight. So I told her, I said, you know what? Go ahead and get me the DSM-5 manual. It's a diagnostic and statistical manual for mental disorders, and it's almost like the Bible for mental
the Bible
illness.
For mental health professionals. I know it well.
Yeah. Okay. And so I said, go ahead and get that book because I would need it in my master's and my PhD. I'm going to need it at that point. So I said, go ahead and get that book for me. And I wasn't surprised. But when I unwrapped the paper that she gave, that the book came in, I knew what it was. And I unwrapped it and I looked at it, and something hit me. It was, this is it. This is where you need to go next. This is what you need to do next. I didn't have the GPA to back it up. And you know what? After this, I went to the dean of my college, and I said, hey, listen, I really want to get into a program. What do you suggest I do? How can I get into a program? And he looked at me, and he said, you know, my brother-in-law is a plumber. He makes really good money. Maybe you ought to look into doing plumbing. I'm telling you, I had some choice words that I didn't say to him, but I just couldn't believe it. And that kind of shot my confidence down at one point. So with the subpar 2.6 GPA coming out of my bachelor's degree, that was one incident where I just felt like maybe this isn't what God has called me to do. Then I had a breakthrough, and I ended up getting into a master's program. The second portion of this, the other big issue that I had, when I went into my master's program, I had trouble getting an internship, okay? And so the reason why is because in these internships, you're working with kids. I said, hey, I've got these felonies, I've got a background, I got out in 2009. I mean, hey, I just want to be upfront with you and say, oh, sorry, we work with kids here, and we don't want to risk our contract with the state, or because you are a convicted felon, we don't feel safe with you being around. I had problems when I went back to my program. So my advisors, well, I mean, you didn't think about this profession before you came into it, before you started spending money and completing the program. You didn't think about this. And that was a moment where it was like, oh, wow, I may not be able to receive my license. I just spent 2.5 years, $60,000 on a master's degree. Wow.
Right.
That was another point. There was another point where I was really depressed and I was really worried. But someone, through the favor of God, listen, I got an internship at a jail, at a juvenile kids at a jail.
Wow.
How powerful is that? I can't get an internship anywhere else in the community. A local Boys and Girls Club. I don't want to name any other programs, but I just couldn't get an internship. But God placed me in a jail with kids.
Wow.
Talk about a purpose. Talk about a mission. The third time where I came into some obstacles, and it had happened throughout my bachelor's degree, is when I would just get shut down for job employment because of my background. I'd get hired, start working a couple of weeks, and they say, hey, your background did come back. We thought it was 5 years, but they went back 7 years, and I'm sorry, we got to let you go. I mean, it was just constant doors shutting in my face, opportunity after opportunity. But I tell you this, the most specific opportunities pertaining to my profession, like the juvenile probation department, those were gifted to me by favor from God. He didn't want me in those places. He didn't want me working at the shoe store. He didn't want me working at the local Family Dollar store. He didn't want me working in these. He put me strategically in the places where he wanted me to have opportunity to make connections and move forward with his purpose, with his mission, with his will for my life. It's powerful. It's very powerful.
That's amazing. God, I tell people all the time, you cannot out-strategize God. I mean, the way that he maneuvers us, and I mean, when we going through it, it don't feel good. I mean, it did not feel good. You spending 5 years in prison, but looking back on it, and you look at it, you be like, you know what, God, you did that, because it was nobody but him. You can't really, because I sit back and I look at some of the things that I go in through, and I'm like, man, only God could have thought of that, because I wouldn't have chosen that path. That is not on the brochure of saying path to greatness, turn here, turn there, and things. And I went through the DSM-5. That's the only book that I kept out of my study. That and a couple of other counseling books, because I got my master's in counseling too. But I kept that DSM-5. I was like, this is a reminder of everything that I had. That's the only textbook, that and a couple of others. That's the only one that I really truly kept. And I keep, and I think they've come out with another one now. It's not just a 5 now. I think it's another one now. But I got the one before the last one that they came out. But I'm like, sometimes when you sit back and you look at how strategic God was and how he truly worked things out for our good, and And if we trust him, if we just allow him to order our steps, the things that he does and the favor that he places on us to maneuver through situations, it's like nobody but God. Because somebody who was in the counseling profession, they would look at you, they would have told you, no, you might want to choose something else, because you're not gonna be
And they
able to.
did.
You're not gonna be able to get hired. You're not.
Mhm.
You sure you want?
There was some grumbling, and so I had asked. We had a meeting, and I raised my hand and I told them, hey, I can't find an internship. And it's most of the time it's the program. It's whatever program you get into. It's kind of their responsibility to take care of their students and find them placement. And so my professors said, you might want to speak with an advisor. You didn't think about this. And you could hear the students kind of mumbling, like whispering. And like, dang, oh, man, he's out of there. Like, oh, man. I got that. I definitely got that. And that was one of those times, like I had said before, and I just kind of rethought what my purpose was. But God blessed me. He blessed me.
He does. I remember doing my internship, getting my bachelor's in social work, and I was working full time, and all of my interns that they were trying to give me were full time during the day, and I'm like, I couldn't quit my job. I was working full time and going to school full time, and it was like they couldn't find me anything. And it was like this one lady called me out of all the places in the world. She called me and was like, oh, you want to work in the evening from 5? That's perfect, actually, because we need such and such and such. And I was like, what? And it ended up being at a homeless shelter for women, and now, my calling is to speak life into women who've been through things like that. And it's like, you sit back and you look into things like that, and you be like, God, you was still working when I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to get this degree finished. I was just trying not to lose my job. But you knew, what you were doing. You knew how you were going to maneuver, and you knew how you were going to use things and turn things around for our good. So it really, really, truly pays to just have that faith and trust in God, and to see it through, and I tell people all the time is to just keep going, because you could have given up before you even went to school. Before you even got to the internship, you could have gave up, because that's not a common profession that they even tell people with a felony background to pursue. It's mostly trades that they tell them to pursue. Either you go to trade school, you try to do something with your hands so you can start your own business, but the professions that require licensing, teachers and psychologists, no, that's not even on the list. So you could have given up before then.
Yeah, they definitely try to push you towards blue-collar work, get you a barber, or go to a beautician, be a beautician, or do nails or something like that. Yeah.
And they really do. So you really have to, just continue to follow God and allow Him to guide and direct you. You mentioned your book, and before we get out of here, I want you to definitely tell us about your book and some of the different services that you provide as well.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm working. The manuscript is complete. I just don't think at this current time it'd be the best to release it. So the release is in July, and I think that the economy and everything, I think it would be in a better place. But in July, that is going to be the release, and it's I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it, and so it was a strategically written for not only at-risk youth, adolescents that we had talked about earlier in the cast, but for people who are in prison, and then the lay person, the person who is in the community who is seeking direction or seeking motivation and encouragement. And it's a blessing. It's definitely definitely a read that everyone should go out and
what's
get.
The title of the book?
It's called Minor to Major, Turning Minor Setbacks into Major Comebacks. And that'll be out in July. You can go to my website and get updates on that at minortomajortx.com. That is my probably I'll be doing speaking engagements and I'll be doing tours, and that book is going to be following me as well. I'll be really pushing that for the community. And then right now I'm working on a huge project. I want to open up a residential treatment center, and I'm going to start looking into building support for that from the community, because I think that our programming is falling short with these kids. These kids that are in CPS, those who age out of the system are 85% most likely to end up in incarcerated facilities within 3 years after they are released from CPS care. And so that is the population that I really want to hone in on. So they've got a lot of mood and behavioral issues, and I want to have a 24-hour residential treatment center that house 40 to 50 kids and provide treatment, wraparound treatment services for those. So that's my next biggest project. I do have I will be opening up the doors to my private practice here again in July, somewhere around that neighborhood as well, here in the Houston area. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeremiah, for coming on and sharing your story, your testimony. I'm excited about what God is going to do in your life, and I know that there is more to come. Can't wait to see that book drop. I'm going to be following you so that I can get my copy. And as always, I want to thank my listeners for joining in and listening. As always, if you want to connect with me, be sure to reach out on my website at www.indianatogo.com. Again, that's www.indianatogo.com. And also, if you have any questions or concerns about the show or want to send me your questions, please do so at pursuitofpurpose2019@gmail.com. Again, that's pursuitofpurpose2019@gmail.com. Again, thank you for listening. I hope you were encouraged. And as I always say, remember, there is purpose in your pain. Thank you.